Hey everyone, it's time to start. Streaming from a new computer because my computer is on repair. So if there's any issues or quality problems, let me know. And yeah, my picture is just right. You're completely right. I went for something. I thought, why not go for something creepy, since it's a creepy subject in one way. It's a dark subject. I don't know. The unconscious is riddled with so many weird ideas and stereotypes, and it's blamed for so many things. It's like we blame everything on the unconscious. We assume everything that's wrong and everything that's going on is a result of our unconscious. And at the same time, psychologists don't really know how to define the unconscious, don't really know what it is or what it means. And a lot of people seem to believe that there is no such thing as an unconscious, and that it doesn't exist at all. But I believe the unconscious is real. I believe that there is something. There are parts of us that we don't realize, things that are there and things we do that we aren't aware of. And that's how I see the unconscious. The unconscious is what we are not aware of in ourselves. It is still something we do, and it's still something that exists, but it's something that we don't recognize. And often when people point it out to us, we will pretend it's not even there. We'll pretend it's not even happening. So to some extent, it's like we deny the very existence of a consciousness. And we pretend it's not there, and we don't think about it. We only think about what we do, and we don't think about the conscious thoughts or conscious actions and what we are aware of. Something I tend to say when people ask me, like, what do you think about video games? What do you think about TV? What do you think about people who waste their life? What I think is, if you're conscious, it's you're not wasting it. If you're doing something and you're aware of what you're doing and you like what you're doing, it's not a waste of time. A waste of time is everything you do, every minute you throw away doing something you don't like. It's every minute you just throw away by pouring yourself into something that bores you, something that you hate, something that doesn't give you anything. And life is deep. Life really is deep. The dark side is deep, but at the same time, I wonder if there are parts in our unconscious that are good and parts that are bad. Is everything in the unconscious bad? Is that where we throw everything that is bad, or is it also where we throw everything within us that is good, that we just don't want to acknowledge? Are there things that are good within the unconscious? Are there things? No, Marvel is eating my food. Marvel, don't eat my food. Marvel was seriously eating my food. Almost. Wouldn't have been good. I think if there is something good about the unconscious, it is inspiration. Inspiration, I think, is something very unconscious in one sense, because, when people are afraid, there's one quote from Doctor Who that really stuck with me. When people are afraid, they do things they didn't know they could. They jump higher than they thought possible. They achieve things they never would have done otherwise. They are able to do things that they normally wouldn't. When people are afraid, when they're a little angry, when they're experiencing these negative emotions like anxiety, that can really push growth in a person. It really kickstarts growth in a person. It gets people to it kind of pumps people up. It gets people thinking. It gets people diving. It gets people digging. So sometimes these emotions, when we acknowledge them and when we feel afraid and we notice that we are afraid and we act and we try to make good decisions, we do unbelievable things. So I believe that's to some extent inspiration. Inspiration is whenever we let emotions take control. It's when we take a leap of faith, when we do something that we can't explain. It's when we do something that is beyond our comfort zone, beyond our current level, beyond our current awareness. There might be things, hobbies, things you love, things that are important to you, relationships waiting for you if you are able to open up yourself to other people, to go out and to actually meet people and make an effort to get to know them. If you actually can get out of your whole house or your safety zone or where you usually hang out, if you can get out of your normal thoughts and what you think about right now, and you can take a step, that is inspiration. I think that's what inspiration is. And, inspiration is, in that sense, definitely unconscious experience, in the sense that we give up control. We give up our need. We give up our ego. We give up our need to know and to understand and explain and rationalize everything. We give up our need to be right. People are so obsessed with being right. They are so obsessed with being right, they will fake awareness in something or hold stubbornly onto something, even if there is something better that they can get if they change their position. Think about an argument. Somebody makes a good argument, and you start realizing that that is a good argument. And you start noticing that if you would take on that position, you would live a better life, you would be happier, you would understand more. But at the same time, your ego feels hit. You feel like the person has hit you on some level, or that the other person has hurt your ego. And if you change your position, then you have to give up your position, and then you have to admit that you're wrong. And then that hurts, that anxiety of doing that. That is what keeps us from growth, and that is what keeps us from inspiration. Stubbornness, clinging to what we know, clinging to what we think, not being able to admit we're wrong, not allowing other people to have a say, not allowing other people influence, not allowing other people to guide us and to give us new feedback. That is the source of just clinging, just an unhealthy clinging that keeps us from growth. So I think, using the piano metaphor, I launched a piano metaphor earlier, and I'll tell you something. Imagine that your top 4 letters, write down your top 4 letters. So, for example, for an INFP, I, N, F, and P. Then write below them your 4 worst letters, E, S, T, J, your 4 reverse letters. That's your high notes. The first 4 letters are your high notes, and the reverse 4 letters are your low notes. So the low notes come from stress, and the high notes come from flow. So in the case of this, if you can see it, the person that is in the muse state, inspiration, is using their second and third letter, but they are letting go of their ego, and they are letting go of control. So that's what gives them inspiration. Openness to new information from intuition, and conscientiousness, and a desire to do something good and to do the right thing, even if it goes against what you think is right personally, even if it goes against how you normally do things, just doing the right thing. That is going into the state that is inspiration. And that kind of takes you out of flow. It kind of takes you out of yourself a little bit. It takes away from your ego and from your personal awareness. But it gives some inspiration. And to emphasize is the autopilot. And the autopilot is everything that you do without thinking about it, everything you don't care about. When you're doing something completely mundane or boring or something that gives you exactly nothing at all. You just shut off your mind. It's so easy, it's so effortless, you can just do it without thinking about it. So the autopilot is everything we do and everything we go through without consciousness, without openness, without conscience. Everything we do sloppily, without caring, without effort. And often the crucial component that makes it an autopilot state is that we do it through ego and through control. The autopilot is control. The autopilot is ego, and requires an ego, and requires a sense of focus on execution. So the autopilot requires you to play on the first and the last letter, and the reverse on second and third letter. So for an INFP, ISTP. ISTP represents the autopilot for an INFP. ENFJs represent the muses for INFPs. That means the source of inspiration, where ISTPs represent the source of the autopilot. I can also call the autopilot the citizen. The citizen is like a person whose core virtue is obedience, control, execution, just doing what you're told, just doing things because somebody told you to do it, without caring about what you do or what they told you to do, or if it's good or not, or if it agrees with your personal awareness or not. It's a person that merely obeys. Think about Milgram experiments. Think about why we do what the superior tells us to do. To understand that, you need to look at the citizen archetype. The muse archetype is the innocent archetype. We do out of a sense of innocence. When we're in the muse, we do things we can't explain. We do things even if we don't know if they will lead anywhere. We do things even if they go against our rational selves and our ego. And we just jump, we just take a leap. We decide to assume that it will all work out and that it will fix itself and that we'll find a way to make it happen. So the muse is what eggs us on to try out new things, start up new works, to do things. The ENFP's autopilot is ESTP. The muse is kind of a person, risks being a person that becomes dependent on other people. The muse risks becoming dependent on others in the sense that the muse takes on and jumps and goes too far and goes too fast into something, doesn't realize that they will get manipulated, doesn't realize that they will get hurt, doesn't realize that this person is probably not nice, doesn't realize that this job will probably not lead anywhere. The muse assumes the best. That is innocence. They put on innocence. The muse assumes everything will work out. And that often means other people have to take care of it. Other people have to come in and help. Other people have to show up and try to fix things for you, or try to guide you, or try to... So in that sense, the muse core risk is becoming dependent. If you don't think about why you do things, if you don't trust your own compass, if you don't reflect on why you do what you do, or if it's smart or how you would normally do it, if you don't try to schedule it, plan it, write it down, organize it, or use some kind of strategy to make it happen, then it has a problem. Then it can become a problem. You can become dependent on other people to fix your life, or you repeatedly get hurting. You repeatedly put yourself in bad situations, and the worst happens. The autopilot is in one way, or the citizen archetype is in some ways afraid of this. I think the worst thing for the citizen is to not know or to not have control. They are in some ways control freaks. They are dependent. They are on being independent, on having control over their life, having a job, having stability. Everything has to make sense. I can't go for this dream. I can't jump for and do what I want. I can't engage in my hobby. I can't engage in my passion because I have to work. I have to obey the orders. I have to do what I'm told. Otherwise, I will lose this position. Otherwise, I lose my security. So there are different needs here: security versus inspiration. The thing that is so good with these keyboard combinations is this ability to look at each individual cognitive function and notice what position it is in. So for an INFJ, what falls in flow, what falls in inspiration, and what falls in autopilot. Let me draw it up for you. Look at this. Here we have a flow box, an inspiration box, and an autopilot box. Here we have introverted intuition. Here we have feeling judging, introverted feeling, and intuitive judging. That goes in the flow box, the conscious box, the things that you're open to, the things that you're conscientious about, the things that you have control over, the things you understand, the things that come from within your ego and from your reason. Then the inspiration types come from EN, FP, EF, and NP. So from curiosity, from bravery, from honesty, and from EF, and basically affection and caring and passion. Finally, the autopilot comes from introverted sensing, thinking, judging, sensing, judging, and introverted thinking. What this means is everything you do with introverted sensing or with thinking, judging, or sensing, judging, or introverted thinking tends to come from the autopilot. Everything you do from extroverted intuition, feeling, perceiving, NP and EF tends to come from inspiration. So an INFJ needs active inspiration and active vulnerability to step into the ENFP functions. The INFJ has to actively make themselves vulnerable and go from their philosophical awareness and from what they know about the world and from their existential perspective, and actually has to go out into the world and be brave and actually have experiences and actually try out new things and actually take a leap at new opportunities. Sometimes an INFJ must be able to do this to get forward in life. Otherwise, there is no growth. The inspiration is the source of growth. Autopilot is the source of stability. So introverted sensing, thinking, judging, sensing, judging, introverted thinking, that's what gives you stability. Ambition and working hard is important for an INFJ to maintain stability. Introverted thinking, intelligence is important for stability. Now Marvel is going for the cat food again, or for the food. For an INTP, I'll draw it up real quick. this is how it looks for an INTP. In the top corner, you have the flow functions for you, the conscious functions, the things you're aware of, and the things you like doing. INTP, basically take the 4 different letter combinations of the INTP. And then at the inspiration, you have ENTJ, ENTJ, ET, and NJ. So all those things require vulnerability and going outside your comfort zone and doing something even if it goes against your ego. And on the other end of things, it's ISFP as the autopilot's functions. So everything that requires introverted sensing, everything that requires you to be more modest and to hold back what you think, everything that requires you to, in different ways, be empathetic and understanding and forgiving towards others, and what requires you to let go of your creativity and to not ask a question or to hold back, to just go with the flow. Using this, you can understand a wide variety of enneagrams, and you can understand a wide variety of cognitive functions and how they manifest in you. You can basically make a chart for every cognitive function, and you can understand how introverted intuition manifests in an INTP, how introverted feeling manifests in an INTP, how feeling judging manifests in an INTP. So what Bethany Lowe just asks, she says, I can see how an INTJ could downgrade into an ISFJ, but I can't see how an ISFJ could downgrade into an INTJ. So yeah, that's the grand experiment that we have to do here. There are basically 16 times 16 combinations. That's a lot of combinations. 256 possible combinations if you account for all the cognitive functions here. So you can we basically have to go and look at each of these functions, and we have to understand how introverted feeling manifests as an autopilot function compared to as an inspiration function, compared to as a rival function, or as a flow function, or a hero function. To give some possibilities for an INTP, the issue with thinking and judging is, thinking and judging requires you to work hard on something for a long time. Something that keeps INTPs from working and investing in a project is that there might always come up something better, or there might always be an issue. INTPs immediately, as soon as they start working in a project, they start seeing a lot of issues. That's a problem, that's a problem, that is a problem, that's a problem. And that's kind of very demoralizing to an INTP. And that becomes like, why should I keep working on this project? It's just full of problems. It just has a lot of errors. So INTPs start looking for a better project or a better program with less errors. And that's what fuels thinking and perceiving. INTPs just start going TP, new project, new things to fix, new things to do. And they never get any traction on any of their projects. They don't actually devote themselves. They don't actually push themselves to work hard on anything. And what requires an INTP to actually get devoted and into a project is that ability to kind of let go of your control, in a sense. Even if you see problems, even if you start noticing a little errors, to be able to keep working on it, to keep push yourself to move on and to not get distracted and to not fall back. And that's vulnerability for an INTP. That is stepping out of what you know and stepping out of what you think. And it's also kind of noticing that it might still work out, even if it has a lot of problems, even if it's not the 100% perfect solution, it still might work. It might still be a rewarding prospect. It might still lead somewhere. And for an INTJ, it goes the other way around. For the INTJ, it's always about, working hard on something. It's always about pushing yourself. It's about basically developing a strategy, developing a plan for it, executing this plan, executing this strategy, and keeping things rolling, keeping things constantly moving forward. Things always have to be productive, always have to move forward, always have to lead somewhere. And there it's a big issue for INTJs when thinking and perceiving starts popping up here. When people start noticing errors and they start saying, hey, what about that? And what about this issue? And what about that? That's kind of when INTJs can get a little frustrated and almost angry in a sense. Because they see people just taking away from their productivity. They see people just trying to steal away from their flow and from their work and from everything they're pushing themselves to do, And overall, the overarching goal, I do believe, is the balancing between these needs of stability and these needs of inspiration. We want both innocence and we want both stability. We want kind of a mix of it. We want to be able to sustain ourselves in the long term. We want to have stability. We want to have control, and we want to have inspiration. And we want to have energy, and we want to have ideas. So what we're looking for is really self-actualization. And one way, what happens when we go into the inspiration zone, when we start jumping for an INFJ, when I start actually jumping for a new opportunity, starting up a YouTube channel, starting up a website, and actually going out and testing my ideas and trying out new connections and speaking out, I'm doing that as I'm always stepping into and embodying that ENFP archetype. And as I do, I'm getting awareness and I'm learning. I'm getting existential insight and I'm understanding things and I'm learning new things. And I'm suddenly I feel like my introvert intuition is becoming boosted to the point where I start finally understanding things that I've only understood on a theoretical level. When I stop feeling a need to always be diplomatic and to always agree with everyone, and when I start actually being more honest and outspoken about my own beliefs, that teaches me a lot about people and about how people work and how I can talk to them and how I can get to know them better. When I entertain a what if or a curiosity or a new prospect, and I find a way to integrate it with my vision, and I find a way to put that together with my path and where I'm going towards and see how it connects. That's boosting my intuitive judging. So all of these experiences lead to growth. And that is why I think you kind of need to mix, where you go in a phase where you kind of go into the unconscious, go into a learning mindset, go on and accept that you don't know everything, try out something even if you don't know where it's going to lead. Get that inspiration, get the insight after doing that, learn from your mistakes, learn from what you did wrong, learn from everything that happened as you did it, and then integrate that with who you are and with finding your way back. The hero's journey is all about that, I believe. Hero's journey is about stepping outside your comfort zone and the known and what you've always been, then getting a lot of challenges and finding a lot, like taking a leap of faith, doing something new, and going into full-blown innocence and into a new world. And in that innocence, getting new friends and people that want to help you and support you, and people that flock to your side, even if you're innocent, even if you're naive. A lot of people tend to want to help a person that has a dream, and a lot of people want to help a person that takes a risk. And then that leads to challenges, and it leads to mentors, guidance, and it leads to, the worst case scenario also. It kind of leads to bad things because things don't go exactly the way you wanted to, and it wasn't enough, and you didn't have all the skills you needed to succeed, and you didn't meet the challenges. There came failure, there came mistakes, there came issues, and then there came transformation from that, learning and finally figuring it out and going, whoa, now I get it. And then it's atonement and making up for what you did, and then it's returning to yourself, stepping into yourself, finding your way back after all these experiences, becoming you again, becoming self-actualized. And that's the self-actualization spiral. And when you come back, suddenly you got new interests, new hobbies, new passions, new things you do. Your daily life has changed. Maybe you met a partner, maybe you met the love of your life, maybe you got in a new apartment. A lot of things have suddenly changed, but you're still you. You're still the person you are. And Bispite asks if I can cover ENTJ functions. ENTJ flow functions are, in order, EN, extroverted intuition, NJ, intuitive judging, TJ, thinking judging, and ET. EN represents bravery and the value of bravery, being brave in the face of new opportunity and taking a leap of faith towards something, a new pattern, a new possibility, jumping at a new opportunity and making it happen, consciously making it happen. You're afraid, it's scary, you don't know if it will work out, but still you're an extrovert intuitive and you're able to be brave and you're able to plan it and make it happen and take control of it. That's extrovert intuition for an ENTJ. Then NJ, that's the visionary part of yourself. It's the independent part of yourself. It's the ability to be original and the desire to do something original. It's the focus on what you want to do in your own path. It's your vision, your source of vision. It's what you share with INFJs and INTJs. So it's that ability to be independent and to represent yourself and your own ideas and your own wishes and to work towards that, to work towards your vision, to simulate and to make it happen, TJ's ability of ambition, to work hard and to pour yourself into a project or a prospect, to push yourself, to strategize, to plan, to execute, to make something happen. It's your architect function in a sense. The one that actively makes your life happen. You're consciously working towards making an ambition come true. You're consciously making it happen, strategizing, thinking, aware of your flaws, aware of what you need to do. And it's that passion to want to do it well and to want to do it in a good way. It's your conscience as you do it. The ENTJ is conscientiously ambitious. They're ambitious because they want to be ambitious, because they value being ambitious, because they find it important, not as a means of stability or survival as it is for an ENFJ. And then extroverted thinking is your pragmatic or material self, what you want, your possessions, and all of this. So an ENTJ's autopilot is extroverted sensing, it's sensing judging, it's feeling judging, diplomacy, it's connecting with people, it's relationships, it's that part of just being a good person, being ethical, being moral. So in the ENTJ autopilot, they're doing it without realizing that they're doing it. They don't reflect about their moral behavior. They don't reflect about how they impact other people around them with what they say and what they do. And they don't think about their day-to-day routines and Why did audio disappear? When did it disappear? No, no, that's not good. Well, as I was saying, at least extroverted sensing and sensing judging and feeling judging and extroverted feeling is done on autopilot for an ENTJ. So ENTJs forget to reflect on their moral behavior and their ethical behavior. They forget to reflect on how their words might impact other people and if they might hurt somebody with what they say. And they don't reflect on routines. I thought you were all trolling me for a second, doing that mic mute thing, that people do in live streams. And ENTJs don't think about the present situation because they're so focused on what's going to happen next, always what's going to happen next. Rarely a time to think about what's happening right now. Sometimes that's confused with Enneagram 7, but no. Still muted. No. This time, I'm not falling for it. INTJ versus ESTP. That's a difficult one. INTJs and ESTPs share one letter in common, thinking. That's the third letter. So minus, minus, plus, minus. My theory is this. You can look at any type based on how many letters they have in common with you, and then you can associate that with a set enneagram. In this case, INTJs and ESTPs have a 4-style relationship, the Enneagram 4 relationship. So, an INTJ will only engage in extroverted sensing and thinking and perceiving in one situation, out of one condition. That is to get respect from other people. They only do these things in order to get respect. They will only act like ESTPs if they are searching for respect from other people. Fours are heart types, and they want most of all to be respected. And what an INTJ seeks respect in is having achieved something, having done something, having acquired status, having acquired a title, having accomplished something. That's what INTJs seek respect for. So if you want to understand the INTJ and ESTP relationship, just look at those letter combinations, what they have in common, and look at that this is kind of a conscientious relationship. Both share similar moral needs or similar passions and care about similar things, but that's it. A question in all of this is, what about the opposite functions? Why aren't the opposite functions unconscious? And my explanation for this, and this is something that comes up when I read people all the time. When I read people, I see their dominant functions, I see how they are in flow, and I see how they are in stress. But I never see cues that signalize that they are in inspiration or that they are on the autopilot. Okay, maybe I can theoretically, but I haven't been able to so far. Why do we only see that thing consciously? Why is that the only thing people realize? Why do people only recognize their inferior functions and their dominant functions? Why is it so hard for people to recognize their inspirational functions and their autopilot functions? And the core reason, I believe, is stress. Stress makes it conscious. Stress makes the inferior conscious. When you go into the inferior, you go into stress and you go into anxiety. And you hold on to it. You've had a bad experience. You've had something bad happen to you. Things have been rough for you. That's the only reason people go into the rival function. Things have been rough and you lost faith in yourself and you're not sure anymore about yourself, or if your ideals will work out. The NF idealist becomes a bitter realist and gives up on their vision. The INTJ loses faith in this new idea or in their academic prospects, or their intellectual side, and they decide, oh, it's not going to lead anywhere. I'm not going to be successful enough. I'm not going to win. I'm not going to accomplish anything. And they go into their inferior. And it's conscious because it requires conscious, constant reaffirming. You have to give up on your dream. You have to constantly tell everybody and yourself that you've given up. You have to constantly let everyone know that I'm not doing it anymore. I'm over it. I'm true. It's not going to happen. It's not going to lead anywhere. It's done. Rivals always have this story that they keep telling everyone to remind themselves to not be foolish. They need to constantly remind themselves because the dominant is always there. You can't. It's very hard to escape from who you are. It's very hard to escape from what you want and for what you value. So the only way you can do it is just constantly tell yourself it's not there. Constantly remind yourself. Constantly pinch yourself. Hold yourself down. Punch yourself so you don't do it again. And then you keep having to do that all your life. That's why I tend to say when you go into the inspirational mode or vulnerability, you let yourself be angry about being hurt in a relationship. You let yourself be angry about losing a job or an opportunity. You let yourself feel guilty and ashamed for the mistake you did. You let yourself feel anxiety. Just real raw anxiety, real raw anger, raw fear, you just feel the emotion. But when the rival comes up, you basically hold on to these emotions and you kind of hold them, and they kind of, instead of anger, it becomes just a constant frustration. It's like you don't admit you're angry. You don't tell people I'm not angry. You tell people I'm actually not angry. I'm not hurt by that losing that relationship. It didn't care to me losing that job. But you're constantly going around and you're being frustrated and you're being annoyed, and everyone can see that you're being annoyed, and everyone can see that you're constantly like holding yourself down and beating yourself up, and that you're constantly in this state of holding on to anxiety and fear and anger and shame without recognizing that you're doing it. And that is really the rival. And that's why it's so conscious. That active use of it, that conscious reminder that it's just the same as the hero functions. The hero functions and the rival functions are what we notice, and it's what we realize in ourselves. Everything in between that, everything we do in inspiration, everything we do in autopilot, we don't notice. And I'm going to tell you, like when I was looking through the Enneagrams, I was noticing some connections between the Enneagrams and inspiration and the autopilot, and in what they tell themselves. I believe some of the Enneagram types you might remember are the 2 and the 7. And the 2, will always say, I was just trying to help. The 2 will try to give you something, or they will try to help you, or they will come into your life and they will try to fix things. And you will go, hey, why are you doing this? I don't want this. Why are you trying to help? That's a common 2 interaction with Enneagram 2. And the 2 will say, hey, I'm just trying to help. Why are you getting upset? I'm just trying to help. And in that sense, I think you can see the autopilot in the 2. I think you can see the autopilot in the 2 because the 2 is not aware of when they are overextending themselves into another person's life, when they are asserting and trying to tell another person what they need. When you decide for yourself that another person needs something without knowing if the other person actually needs it, giving it to them without caring about if they like it or not, that's a trap for the 2, and deceiving themselves that they are doing something good for others, and not actually listening to the people they are trying to help, and not actually trying to understand the person they're trying to help. There's nothing wrong with trying to help a person, but sometimes 2s want so much to be the good person, to be the good guy, to be the nice guy, that they assert what they think a person wants, or maybe in this case what a girl wants, and the girl doesn't actually want it, and then they become upset when the girl doesn't want it. That's a common trap for Enneagram 2. With the 7, there's another issue. 7s will say, hey, I'm just having fun. Why are you getting offended? I'm just having fun. Why are you getting upset? They're sitting in class and they're playing around and they're like causing a fuss and a stir, and the teacher gets upset and the teacher says, hey, what are you doing? And the guy says, hey, why are you getting upset? I'm just playing around. I'm just joking, Or at a party, they say something out of mind and they're incredibly rude. And once again, yeah, I'm just having fun. That's typical autopilot thing. Autopilot types, they don't recognize that what they are doing doesn't necessarily have to be fun or isn't necessarily nice. They just assume it is. So I think the autopilot rests on assumption that you're doing the right thing, assumption that you're doing something good, rather than actually doing something that is good, actually trying to do something that's good, actually thinking about what is good and what will help and what will another person actually need. So that's the issue here. And I think you can see this even more in Enneagram 1s and in especially, of course, the citizen types. It is the most visible in citizen types, but I think you can also notice it in the 2s and the 7s and the 1s. Flip it and look at inspiration. It's the self-preserving types, the Enneagram 8s and Enneagram 4s, that are the closest to that state of inspiration. Perhaps that's why 4s are often associated with being artists. That state of inspiration, you do things, you don't know how you do it, you don't know where it comes from or what allows you to do it or where the power or the strength comes from. But you do it, you're able to do it, you're able to draw, and you don't know where your ideas for these drawings come from, you don't know where these inventions come from. It's just there, it just appears inside of you. And the problem with inspiration, I think, is it's also often drawn from people around you. The issue and the core issue, something to be very aware of, is all your powers, all your gifts in this come from somewhere. And if you can't recognize that source, you might struggle to accept it and acknowledge it. And you might be using people without realizing it. So that's a core problem in the Enneagram 8 as well, Enneagram 8s, they're like so powerful and they're so tough and they're so strong and everyone's inspired by them and they're able to do so much. They're so cool. That's how we look at Enneagram 8s. Usually, sometimes 8s have a bad reputation of being dictatorial, but people also look at 8s with a great deal of respect and admiration. They are one of the most inspiring Enneagram types. They are inspired. And they are constantly taking on energy from everyone around them. The very source of the 8's power is everyone around them. Everyone that agrees with them, everyone that listens to them, everyone that supports them, everyone that says that's a good job. So the 8 becomes dependent on this admiration from other people and control over other people. They can even get attached to it. And that's where the unhealthy problem comes, that attachment to it, forcing other people to agree with you, making people afraid to disagree with you, making people scared to avoid you, forcing people to go along with what you say. Because you need that power, you need that inspiration, you want them to give it to you so that you can do what you need to do. And if you don't have it, that's when you start getting upset and angry, and that's when you start demanding it from the world around you. And that's the problem with 8. And yesterday I made a video about the problem with empaths, or with self-preserving types, in particular healers, all healer types, not just empaths, doctors, people that are overall invested in, helping, protecting, caretaking, nurturing, supporting. They're not like the 2s. They're not trying to care for or give anybody anything. in the sense of making people dependent on them, but rather they are trying to heal people, make people self-sufficient, make people understand traumas and bad experiences, help people get over issues so that they can become more independent. But there is a controlling aspect here. And there is a kind of demand for other people to adhere to what you say and to take your advice and to take your feedback and to listen to you and to follow the subscriptions that you give. If they don't listen to you, like that's when you start asserting and pushing. Hey, you need to do this. You need to take this medicine. You need to listen to my advice. That's when healers start overextending and forgetting about their boundaries, and that's when they become overinvested in other people's lives. So that's what you want to look at. The self-preserving, the 8 and the 4 are all states of inspiration, and they all highlight issues with inspiration, issues with attachment to inspiration. For the 8, for example, then demanding recognition and feedback and using that power to achieve things and to do greatness and to not give people credit where it's due and all those things. So does that make sense to anyone? Rival is minus, 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 all letters flipped. So for 9FJ ESTP. Jay asks if I can do a video on how types come out in old people elderly. Oh, that would be a great video idea. Yeah. Well, ideally, shouldn't they be self-actualized at that point? Or have they gone bitter? It's hard to tell, Some old people may have moved in different directions than others. I should say the 5 also comes from inspiration. Can I talk about Enneagram 5? Yes, I can. 5s are minus, plus, minus, minus types. What that means is the second letter is strong, the other 3 are somewhat repressed. And that also means the 5 is an inspiration type, at least to some point, inspiration and stress type. So intuition is developed. An INTJ5 is a very intuitive type. An ISTJ5 is a very sensing type. That's always there. That's the root of it. But it's a kind of rattled and inspired form of intuition. It's an intuition on gone haywire almost. It's constant new ideas for an INTJ at least. It's also like this feeling that I have to I have to be brave. I have to try this out. I have to consider more what ifs. It's that constant flow of what ifs from NP hitting an INTJ. It is that constant thought about missed opportunities. And it's modulation from the rival function, from feeling and perceiving, from the topic of honesty. It's holding on to guilt over not having been honest, or feeling too modest, or holding on to modesty, forcing yourself to not move to an ambition because you have to be modest, because you don't know enough, because you don't need to study more. That's the INTJ 5, I don't know enough. I shouldn't think highly of myself. I shouldn't push myself too much. And yeah, 3 minus signs, that might sound bad, but that's not a scale of it. That's not how you should see it. Think about it instead of percentages. So imagine a 2 has 100% introversion, 100% feeling, and 100% judging, but maybe 0 or 20% intuition in the hardest case or the worst scenario. Where maybe a 5 has 40, 60, 40, 40. Like, imagine it like this, or 40, 100, 40, 40. Like, what you have to look at for health, I think, is the percentages. If you want to understand the actual information about health and about how a person is feeling and how they're doing, you have to look at emotional stability. Even if a person has 3 pluses or 4 pluses, they might still struggle to some extent. They might still be struggling with some things. They might still have issues. The core issue of the hero and the flow and of the conscious person is hubris, overconfidence in yourself and overconfidence in your ideals and who you are. And that's something heroes always have to guard themselves from. And like, you have to be able to at least admit or at least entertain that you could be wrong. And you have to be able to not get too attached to yourself, to stability. Otherwise, hubris can become a problem in heroes or flow types and people that are more self-actualized. And that's a constant thing, I think it's a constant struggle to stay conscious, to stay present, to stay aware and mindful. And to guard yourself from hubris. And hey, it's a constant state of learning as well. The world is always changing, and we are not just us, we are everyone around us. We are the world around us. We are all the ideas we are to achieve, everything we are to recognize. Sometimes I wonder, are you truly self-actualized unless not everyone else is? Are you truly self-actualized unless you've finished all of your projects and all of your ideas and you brought everything to fruition? Perhaps it's a constant project. Yeah, don't worry. Like, no Enneagram type is better than any of the others. To find out how good it is, you look at the health levels, you look at stability, you look at how connected you are to yourself, you look at how affirming you are of yourself, you look at your anxiety and how you're feeling, you look at all those things about yourself. And you look at self-actualization and have I done what I wanted in my life? Am I happy with myself and with what I've done so far? Am I proud of myself? Do I feel good about myself? Do I feel like those are important questions? And perhaps that's a Buddhist idea, or perhaps it's just a human idea. I don't know. I'm going to start rounding off this stream. Thank you all for joining up. Tomorrow I'll be making a video about the problem with postmodernism, just diving into what postmodernism is and why people are so upset with it, kind of, to some extent. Hope you'll all like it. Hope you like the stream. Yeah, maybe I should listen to this stream again myself. I kind of went into this stream actually not knowing what I was going to say. And it's because it's kind of a research. It's an ongoing research for me. All of this is an ongoing research for me. I have so many enneagrams to look at, so many functions to look at, so many different things to dive into. So I don't have all the answers. And I'm just making the stream, kind of throwing out the questions to you and trying to figure it out while I'm making it. But at least I know I have something interesting to dive into. And I'm sharing this equation with you because then that means you can do it as well. You can tell me how it works for you and how it fits. Good night, good day, everyone. Let me know if I should do streams earlier or later. I know my audience is 50% American and then everywhere else, basically, in the world as well. So it's hard to set a good time. But I feel like this is a good compromise because the Europeans are still awake and the Americans are just woken up. And the problem is the Asian people that I feel really bad for. Maybe I could do it at 16 sometimes. We'll see. Check out my Patreon page and leave a donation. And if you like this, share the video or leave a like or leave a comment later on or share your thoughts, reflections. Also, feel free to come into our Facebook group. Or to our Discord group. I've done it. I'm not sure if I can share the Discord group from this computer. I don't have it installed. Yeah, I can. So that's all for today. See you tomorrow and bye-bye.